your attorney. Please be mindful that we are trying to get as many callers as possible, so please limit yourself to one question per call. If the attorneys don't know an answer, they aren't going to fake their way through it. The attorneys are going to tell you if they are unsure, and they are going to find the answer. As professionals, they have reference materials available, but might have to find the answers off air and then provide the information later in the show. If you hear us say that we should talk off the air, take the hint that there is something either too specific or too juicy to tie up the airwaves. They will get your contact information off air and follow up at a later date.
Okay, let's get rolling with questions. Again, the phone number is 302-945-9292 or toll free 800-518-9292. And again, you can go to industrynewsonline.com and submit questions electronically. I'm going to start with one with Michelle in Millsboro Digital. It says, Julianne, insurance providers are currently assessing profits and dropping many counties with aging populations. Aetna just notified us that we are being dropped, and I assume all others in our, quote, Medicare age group are experiencing the same thing. Humana has already notified many of their Medicare clients they are being dropped. It could be a huge benefit for Trump if he could come up with a speedy fix for this. All right, so Michelle, thanks for sending it in. Not really a question, more of a comment, but I realize that it's a hot button. In terms of Social Security benefits, Medicare, whether there are cuts in it, and with these Medicare supplement providers apparently assessing and dropping people, this is going to come to a head, and hopefully it will be Trump that's in office so that he can deal with it, because I would bet on his coming up with a solution much more than I would bet on somebody else who is running against him coming up with a solution. Let me do, I don't think I have a phone call. Oh, I do. Okay, so caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Who is running against him coming up with a
Turn off your radio. Let's start there.
Let me do, I don't think I have a phone call. Oh, I do. Okay, so caller,
what's your name?
Hello?
Hi, I need you to turn down your radio because
Hello?
it's going to... Hello, what's your name?
Hello?
Hello, what's your name?
What's your name?
Hello?
Hi, I need you to turn down your radio.
Okay. I can't hear you. I guess you can hear me. I turned the radio back on. What I was interested in knowing, there's some speculation, I guess, about the next thing that Senator Townsend, and I guess I can't remember if Lockman's a senator or a representative, but anyhow, I guess they're going to push for gun registration. Isn't that illegal via federal law to have a gun registry where you have to register all of your firearms in the state? And since I can't hear you, I will just hang up and thank you very much for your help, Julian, and have a pleasant day. Bye bye.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay, so the question is a rumor that there's going to become a gun registry, and the question is it illegal? No, I don't think it is. What's interesting is whether or not there's going to be, because there had been conversations about a federal gun registry, and whether and how that would play into federal law and state law. A lot of states actually have gun registration. Delaware has not historically had it. Now, I would say that what used to be viewed as not an infringement from the standpoint of the states that had gun registration now has more nefarious intent, as in not friendly to Second Amendment, or in Delaware's case, Article 1, Section 20 rights. Is putting yourself on record that you own a weapon an infringement. Someone will challenge it for sure, but since there has been gun registration in other states, I don't see that necessarily wins. But again, totally different political environment about the hostility to gun ownership that might be viewed differently than it would have been even 20 years ago. Now, in terms of, I'm not aware of a federal law that would preclude a gun registration. So the argument would be whether the constitutional amendment that says your right to bear arms shall not be infringed, is that somehow implicated when there's a gun registration? And I don't think that it would be held that way, because registering, the very nature of registering, does not necessarily infringe your right to bear arms. Now, if there are impediments that happen because you are registered, if it makes it so that it is harder to actually have a weapon because of registration, not necessarily understanding what that registration looks like, there might be an argument about that. So for instance, in Delaware, the permit to purchase, one of the arguments, and I thought it was a very good argument against doing the permit to purchase, is that it's expensive. You have to buy the permit, it expires, you have to go through a certain firearms training. There were a whole lot of things that went around that permit to purchase, and whether or not it actually infringes on somebody's right to bear arms. And that's going to be litigated, is being litigated, but I think everybody at this point knows that this does not move quickly. So I certainly appreciate the question. I'm going to do a digital question. I think it's more of a comment, and then we'll step away for a second. And this is from D in Rehoboth, and it says, this is going to sound very simplistic. However, given that it appears there are roughly 50% of the people that are voting for Kamala Harris, I have to ask, why don't the Republicans dumb it down and point out in commercials and ads that, generally speaking, many people do more research and have a better understanding about their product buying a washing machine than is known about the person they are running for the highest office in the land? She hides and answers nothing. And then she does answer it woefully shy of details. In addition, why do they not point out that she was elected VP to fulfill a campaign promise as opposed to being the best person for the job, which is not stellar positioning in the event of illness or death of the president? Okay, so a couple of comments, and I tell everybody, I mean, if I had somebody on the line right now, we try to do legal questions here, but I understand that I cross over into political and legal. And in terms of ads, I think that I know that people have been concerned they've not seen a lot of ads for Republicans here in Delaware. And I've commented that basically from an expense standpoint, commercials are very expensive. Republicans just do not have as much in their coffers as the Democrats do. It's just a reality I'd like to see changed. But from a national standpoint, I do think you're going to see some of this. I think that, I saw one the other day, that a Kamala Harris ad that just was completely a waste of time, where she said, let's not all fight, let's move forward together, and, no substance whatsoever. There are people that are going to fall for that. But Trump is a fighter, and I think people like him or hate him for that, but he is absolutely going to in their messaging are absolutely going to be pointing out that there is no substance there. I also think that from a vice presidential standpoint, whereas typically a vice presidential debate may not move the needle in a presidential election, I think that the vice presidential debate this week could move the needle. J.D. Vance came off very well, and Tim Walz came off not very well. So we'll see what happens, but I appreciate the concept of what you're saying, that let's just dumb it down and let's hit people, hit the common sense button. And I do think you're going to start seeing that messaging about common sense. I know that here in Delaware, our candidates are absolutely talking common sense and bringing back balance, and basically saying, look where our state is, look who has been in charge, and this is what happens when you have one party rule. So very much appreciate it. Let's step away for a second, take questions when you get back. This is 92.7 and 98.5, and that is the Talk of Delmarva.
I'm Tom Holmes, 1776 Steakhouse in Rehoboth Beach. The restaurant's been here since 1987. I've had it since 2007. I get probably 2-3 customers a night that will come in and say, I heard you on the radio and it sounded great, and we're so happy that you're advertising locally with local businesses. I used to do very limited advertising, just a little bit on newspapers and billboards and stuff like that, but now I'm pretty much exclusively just with the radio station. I advertise on Rehoboth Foodie Bob's show, and I also advertise different segments and different times during the course of the week. I've been pretty much with the same schedule for maybe about 10 years. I'm just happy I am advertising with them. They've been very loyal to us, and the feedback I get from my customers about the radio station is tremendous.
I'm Keith Pettit, an assistant manager here at Southern States Milford Cooperative in Milford, Delaware. My experience with WGMD radio station, Talk of Delmarva, has been outstanding. We do our once monthly radio show here in our showroom, and we instantly see results of people coming in that day and the following day and the weeks after saying, I heard about this on WGMD, the Talk of Delmarva. And not just at a close local level within a few miles, but it brings customers in from a fair distance to come and check out the products that we've talked about through the radio station advertising. But in my estimation, WGMD is the best talk radio station on Delmarva. People are in tune to hanging on every word that that station says, and that transfers to the advertisers. The people that listen to WGMD listen to our advertisements word for word, and they know what they're looking for when they come in here as a result. I just think they're phenomenal. They do a great job.
My name is Karen. My husband and I own Captain's Pizza. We have been here for over 6 years, going on 7. We only advertise with WGMD, and we love it. They really help us with anything that we need. They always have good suggestions. They help me with the commercials. Advertising has helped our business tremendously. We do get a lot of people that come in and want to know who is talking on the radio, and I'm always here, so I'm always happy to say that it's me. We participate with Delmarva Dollars. A lot of customers bring them in. We have customers that ask when they're going to have them again if they don't hear it on the radio. We tried advertising in the newspaper and things like that, but we see more of a showing with the Delmarva Dollars. And the customers, they ask me, where else do we advertise? And I tell them, we only advertise with WGMD. We've been very successful with them. We get exactly what we ask for, and it's well worth the money that we invest in it.
Since 1980, WGMD Radio has been your local hometown station with everything from music to news to sports. We know a thing or two about community and longevity. The Talk of Delmarva is proud to be partnered with the White Marlin Open and congratulates them on 50 years.
I think there may be someone calling in now. I want to see if I know I don't have any digital questions on the board right now, but let's see if I can. I've got a caller. Let's just go right to it. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Kathy from Bethany. How are you?
Hey, Kathy. How are you today?
Great, thanks.
Good. How can I help?
I have a question about, I guess it's basically about a will.
Okay.
The current situation is that in my mother's will, she has her children and her sister listed on her to benefit from the sale of her home.
Okay.
Her sister will shortly be receiving long-term care benefits through Medicaid, and it's my understanding that she, if she benefits or inherits a part of the home, that it could affect her Medicaid benefits, but my mother is wondering if she would have to update her will, or if when the time comes, the proceeds from the home could just be split amongst her children, and her sister gets kind of left out, even though she's still named on the will.
Okay, it's a good question. And I mean, all right, so a couple of things. Right now with the will the way that it is, it would not affect the sister's ability to qualify because the inheritance hasn't happened yet, right? I mean, it's in the will. And I do want to make sure that just for people who are listening, when we talk about wills being split between, like children and sister, from the proceeds, that it's important to have what's called a direction to sell the real estate in the will. People assume that the sale happens, but without that direction, the sale doesn't necessarily happen, and it can really get complicated. But to your question, in terms of disqualifying her for Medicaid, it could at the time that mom dies, if the sister is still receiving aid, she could potentially become disqualified because the inheritance. So there's not necessarily a choice to not inherit. However, there is a choice to disclaim. Okay, so basically, and it depends on the sister. So the mom, so I guess, is that your aunt? I just keep saying the sister, but I guess technically it's your aunt. If she has a power of attorney, one of the powers that is in a power of attorney is to reject, renounce, disclaim, or modify a beneficial interest. That's a whole lot of words, but basically it's word salad that says if you are getting aid and it's going to disqualify you, that the agent can disclaim that inheritance on behalf of your aunt. Okay, so if she does not, and if she, and I don't know whether, does she still have capacity?
She does.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So if she has capacity, she can disclaim it herself. And if she doesn't have capacity, then it would have to be done by power of attorney. But there is a mechanism where mom does not have to redo her will. But whatever she does, do not, under any circumstances, just scratch it out on the will. People do that and they think, because it actually nullifies that whole article potentially. So, leave it the way that it is. And when that time comes, if there's an issue, your aunt can either disclaim it. If she does not, your aunt does not have a power of attorney in place, you guys should get her one. Because, when you're staring at long-term care and that kind of thing, at some point there's a possibility that she could lose capacity, and we need somebody to be able to act on her behalf for those legal and financial affairs.
Right. So you're saying my aunt should have power of attorney over my mother, or
No.
vice versa?
No, what I'm saying, not over each other at all. What I'm saying is that your aunt should have power of attorney where she needs to execute one where she names someone who can act on her behalf if she loses capacity.
So currently my mother is that person, but should my mother pass away, that would be null and void, obviously.
That is correct. So, so it is time at this point while your aunt has capacity, to execute a new power of attorney that could still name your mom if your mom still wants to be that agent, but there needs to be a backup in place. Because, clearly, they're getting older, having that backup who can make legal and financial decisions. And for your mom needs to execute a power of attorney where she names whether it's you or somebody else in one of her other children, one of your brothers or sisters. But getting that in place is very advisable, because just because you're her kids does not mean that you can do anything legally and financially for her. And if she loses her ability to take care of that herself, having somebody lined up is just legally good. Otherwise, you guys end up going to Chancery Court and having to get a guardianship, and that is, it's expensive and time consuming.
Okay, all right. And as far as the proceeds of the house going to my aunt, you're saying that my aunt herself or somebody who has power of attorney can nullify that?
Yes, it's called disclaim. They can disclaim.
Disclaim. Thank you. I was going to ask you what that terminology was again.
Yeah, it's called disclaim, and it's and it is not uncommon to happen in this exact scenario where you've got somebody who's already on long-term assistance and it just is going to mess everything up. Yes, and if your aunt or her agent were to disclaim, then what would happen probably depends on how the will reads. It would probably be split between the remaining beneficiaries at that level, as opposed to your aunt's children, if she has children.
Okay, understood. She does not, but understood.
Okay. Yep. So it does get there. It was, and it's a long way to get to what you were talking about. Yeah, it can be split between everybody else, but there's a mechanism that has to happen, which is that disclaimer to make that happen.
Okay. Is there a con to not updating the will, or is it just easier to get the will updated?
A great question. It is. It's sort of. it's probably not a bad idea to update the will, particularly if your mom also needs to do a power of attorney. If she doesn't have one for herself. Having a more current and just not having to deal with the disclaimer, sure, that would, and there could be other stuff potentially that that could be addressed in the will. So, for instance, when I said this thing about direction to sell, a lot of people don't realize that in Delaware, when mom dies, if it does not specifically say I direct the sale of my real estate, if those words aren't there, and you guys are all just listed, under Delaware law, you become co-owners, and then all of you have to agree what's going to happen with the property, all have to sign the listing agreement, all have to sign the deed. With the direction to sell, the executor can do all of that. So if the will doesn't have that language, then she absolutely wants to redo the will, and at that point could take the sister out. But if she doesn't, have the, I'm going to use the word feel inclined, to redo the will, doesn't want to, go through that, then the disclaimer, if everything stayed the way that it was, the disclaimer could work to get where, that the sister, your aunt, would still be able to get her benefits.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for your guidance. I love your show. You're wonderful.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I like doing these Saturdays. So, and I hope it was helpful for you.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks. Take care, Kathy. And so, lots of different things to kind of unpack in there in terms of, I know that I said this thing about direction to sell, but people, every state law is a little bit different about how they handle the passage, quote unquote, of real property. And Delaware, as I said, it happens upon the death of the person. And so when that happens, if you don't have that direction, and I've mentioned this before, when you have multiple beneficiaries, doing that direction to sell is so important because it keeps the fight from happening. If you don't do the direction and you have, say, 4 kids, those 4 kids don't agree on what's supposed to happen. It's, it causes all sorts of problems for, one wants to move in, one doesn't. There's a lot. So I'll talk more about this in the next half hour. You're listening to 92.7 and 98.5, and that is the talk of Delmarva.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Hutton from Rehoboth Beach Running Company. We've been in this location for about 8 years, and we've been in business for about 16 years. We're pretty much busy every day, all year round now. Since we've been advertising with the Talk of Delmarva, everywhere we go, people seem to know about us. I like working with other small businesses. We work with a lot of small businesses, and advertising is no different. And we like for people to come in and actually see our store. Yeah. So when people from the Talk of Delmarva have seen our store, they understand it better. Some of their other customers shop at our store, and it's really a small town kind of life. And people shop local, advertise local, listen to the local radio. It all kind of comes full circle. So how has the marketing department helped us? Well, I love that she's always looking ahead at the calendar, because as a small business person, I'm very busy and I'm kind of thinking of last minute things. And so Laura's always ready for the sidewalk sale. She knows it's a big deal for us. And so you want to get the word out a little bit early. And the sidewalk sale this year was better than ever. And I think it's in great part to Laura's planning and the commercials, so people know that the whole town is having a sidewalk sale and that we have big sales at that time of year. I didn't really know what to expect in the beginning, because I didn't know whether she'd know our business. I don't know if she would know runners and all about, but she listens very carefully and she researches and she really tries to gear our ads towards our business, and she does an excellent job. I think people really more now than ever want to shop local. I think people want to support local businesses and help the community. And so when people know that we are a small business that meets their needs, they'd rather shop here than go online or some other way. So I think people really want to help themselves and help the community. We have attracted our ideal customer at the Talk of Delmarva. We service people from, 12 years old or even younger to 95-year-olds. So yeah, I think our ads are doing a great job of bringing customers to us. The Talk of Delmarva advertising has helped with our marathon also. So I organized the Rehoboth Marathon and Half Marathon in December, and we sell out earlier and earlier every year. And I think that's due in part to advertising with the Talk of Delmarva. You know, the people know that we have a running store and that we also have this big race at a great time of year, and people sign up earlier and earlier every year. I really do believe that the return on investment is huge. I think we definitely got return on our investment quickly. Every dollar spent was well worth it. I would highly recommend for other businesses to advertise on the Talk of Delmarva. It's been a great experience for us. It's been very worthwhile, and I would highly recommend it to other businesses.
I'm Tom Holmes, 1776 Steakhouse in Rehoboth Beach. The restaurant's been here since 1987. I've had it since 2007. I get probably 2-3 customers a night that will come in and say, I heard you on the radio and it sounded great and we're so happy that you're advertising locally with local businesses. I used to do very limited advertising, just a little bit on newspapers and billboards and stuff like that, but now I'm pretty much exclusively just with the radio station. I advertise on Rehoboth Foodie Bob's show, and I also advertise different segments and different times during the course of the week. I've been pretty much with the same schedule for maybe about 10 years. I'm just happy I am advertising with them. They've been very loyal to us, and the feedback I get from my customers about the radio station is tremendous.
From 7 to 8 a.m., getting you up to date on first state politics and taking your phone calls here on 92.7 WGMD.
Welcome back to Tipping the Scales of Justice. Julianne Murray live in studio. I have no phone calls lined up, so let's give those numbers out. It's 302-945-9292 or 800-518-9292. You can go online to industrynewsonline.com and submit questions electronically. I've got one here from Tom in Salisbury. It says, Julianne, one of the WGMD hosts talks about military tribunals to bring the swamp to justice. Is this a possibility? Gee, I wonder which host that is. Jake Smith. All right, so is it possible? Yes. But there's a whole lot that has to happen before you get to that. Number one would be the declaration of martial law. And I know that there was a lot of chatter after the 2020 election that there actually was martial law that was in place. But in terms of how you get there, that would mean that the military is taking over. There's no there's no administration, there's no president, there is no vice president, there is no Speaker of the House. It is, in order to get to military tribunals, we are at a catastrophic level of chaos here in the United States. And, could it happen? Yes. Do I think it's going to happen? I hope not. But, in terms of whether could there ever be such a thing? Technically, yes, but it's, that is the only way that happens is if the military takes over and, civilian law no longer is driving. That's how you would get to those tribunals. Do I have a caller? I think I do. Okay, so caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, Julianne. It's Suzanne from Millsboro. How are you today?
I'm good. How can I help you, Suzanne?
Well, does Delaware have its own FEMA?
Yes.
Okay. How do we know what the funds, how much are the funds? How do we know who's handling it? And how do we know it's going to be used for Mother Nature disaster relief instead of other entities?
Okay. And so in terms of when you asked if Delaware has a FEMA, so it's the Delaware Emergency Management. So it is the state agency versus the federal agency of FEMA. With some searching, you can actually find the budget for Delaware. and and you can go to the go to DuckDuckGo or the search engine of your choice. But you can, I can't, in a break I'll look and see if I can find an actual link for it. But it is possible to drill down to the budget and find out what the line item is for emergency management. What I'm wondering, hang on, in terms of whether or not that money gets spent there, there has been a huge uprising in terms of we should have an office of the Inspector General that is the watchdog for this, because right now the only real watchdog is the General Assembly in terms of the power of the purse. So if funds were being mismanaged or something like that, they could choose between the governor and the General Assembly the next year to not give the same amount of money there. There can be challenges from citizens or beneficiaries that money is being mismanaged, but it's I'm not sure of any that are cooking at the moment. What I'm wondering
go ahead.
Is
that particular agency audited every year?
Probably not. Now, we have an auditor, a state auditor, and that office has the ability to audit, and they have a schedule of when they are going to perform. There are certain agencies that they're going to perform audits, but if they have a fraud tip line. And if there is if they're getting allegations of fraud, they can step in and audit. Now, here's what's tricky about the Office of the Auditor. They can audit and they can publish what their findings are, but they do not have the, I'm going to use the word jurisdiction for lack of a better word, to actually do something about it. It would have to be referred to like the Office of the Attorney General if there was something criminal there or something like that. But it is, as far as I know, and I'm sure that someone will text me and let me know if I am wrong, I do not think that any state agency, I'm going to use the word all state agencies, are audited every year.
Yeah, and that's our tax money that goes into that fund. Am
Absolutely.
I correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. I just don't want to see what happened to the people in Carolinas and Georgia. It's a disgrace. And I think it's making everyone aware of what's going on and where the actual money is going in that. And we are very lucky. We are on the coast.
Yep.
We could have had the same thing come in, Lewis and Rehoboth and wipe everything out.
Yep. Well, and one of the things that's interesting about this is, state versus federal. So the, and I mean, FEMA is there to, in theory, to help states so that, so state has, each state has some of its own funds, which is what we're talking about, Delaware's emergency management. But the idea that Mayorkas could go out and say, yeah, FEMA's out of money, is so awful. I mean, and again, I wish that I could use more precise words that, but I would get in big trouble for saying them. But I mean, and I think that people are seeing this. And I mean, and there's a couple of things that are happening in North Carolina that in terms of, that talk about being tone deaf to say, oh, we're going to give $750. These are people who have lost everything. Like house, cars, clothes, everything. Yeah. And there have actually been reports of FEMA hampering volunteers in North Carolina. And the volunteers are basically telling them to pound sand and just, going around them and helping people. So there's something, just not good going on in North Carolina right now in terms of hurting
the thing is, this affects banks that got demolished, all that cash. Hopefully they have safes that are storm-proof.
Sure.
But you got to think about that stuff.
Yeah, it's not just the homes and there's a whole, there is a whole community that was essentially wiped out. And, go ahead.
I appreciate you taking my call, and I hope Delawareans wake up and realize that this can happen here as well.
It can. And, and one of the wake up calls that needs to happen is when you start talking about budgets. Very rarely does a budget, what I'm going to call it zero-based budgeting, where so the next year, and I know that Mike Ramone has talked about this, and I totally agree with him about this, that when you do the budget for next year, every agency, instead of, what typically happens is you start with what they have from this year and add something to it. Instead, and a zero-based budget would be start at zero. And tell me why you need whatever the number is, and starting to, that's where you find the waste and potentially fraud. There's all sorts of fat in budgets, and in Delaware and many states got a bunch of extra money that came out from the federal government for COVID relief. And, what happened with that money and where is it? And, so we've had kind of a false sense of surplus going on that is going to have a rude awakening in the next couple of years.
That's our state auditor. And unfortunately, we don't have Kathy McGinnis again, who got a little in too close for the Attorney General and the governor, because she is by the book. And you don't hear anything from the state auditor now as to what, she's doing. And that's really upsetting. She doesn't come on WGMD. So that's why I'm just saying we need to wake up, and we got to take care of our own, too, as well.
We do. So I appreciate the call. And it's timely in terms of, elections coming up. People should be requesting absentee ballots if they can't vote between October 25th and November 5th. And, you got to engage. This is, you're paying into it. Voters out there, you're paying into it. So you might as well, put some skin in the game and actually get responsible people that are going to be managing it. Totally agree.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for all that you do. You are a blessing.
Oh, thank you, Suzanne. I appreciate that. Yeah. And
have a good day.
You too, Suzanne. Thanks. And I do think that this is, in terms of what's happening. When you start talking about millions and millions and hundreds of millions of dollars at the federal level, it's going to be interesting, because I saw, I don't remember where I saw it, but basically talking about the money that we have sent out of the country for aid to Ukraine, Israel, and all over the place. The United States, the pocketbook is the pocketbook for the world in a lot of ways. And we have American citizens that lost their homes, lost everything, and are basically being told, I'm sorry, we don't have the money to help you. That doesn't sit well, and it shouldn't sit well. And, there's absolutely nothing wrong with prioritizing the needs of Americans who are paying into the tax base before you start prioritizing other ones. But I'm here to take legal questions, so I'm going to step away for a second. We'll take them when we come back. But this is 92.7 and 98.5, and that is the Talk of Delmarva.
This WGMD Weather Report is brought to you by...
I'm Tom Holmes, 1776 Steakhouse in Rehoboth Beach. The restaurant's been here since 1987. I've had it since 2007. I get probably 2-3 customers a night that will come in and say, I heard you on the radio, and it sounded great, and we're so happy that you're advertising locally with local businesses. I used to do very limited advertising, just a little bit on newspapers and billboards and stuff like that, but now I'm pretty much exclusively just with the radio station. I advertise on Rehoboth Foodie Bob's show, and I also advertise different segments and different times during the course of the week. I've been pretty much with the same schedule for maybe about 10 years. I'm just happy I am advertising with them. They've been very loyal to us, and the feedback I get from my customers about the radio station is tremendous.
I'm Keith Pettit, an assistant manager here at Southern States Milford Cooperative in Milford, Delaware. My experience with WGMD radio station, Talk of Delmarva, has been outstanding. We do our once monthly radio show here in our showroom, and we instantly see results of people coming in that day and the following day and the weeks after saying, I heard about this on WGMD, the talk of Delmarva. And not just at a close local level within a few miles, but it brings customers in from a fair distance to come and check out the products that we've talked about through the radio station advertising. But in my estimation, WGMD is the best talk radio station on Delmarva. People are in tune to hanging on every word that that station says, and that transfers to the advertisers. The people that listen to WGMD listen to our advertisements word for word, and they know what they're looking for when they come in here as a result. I just think they're phenomenal. They do a great job.
My name is Karen. My husband and I own Captain's Pizza. We have been here for over 6 years, going on 7. We only advertise with WGMD, and we love it. They really help us with anything that we need. They always have good suggestions. They help me with the commercials. Advertising has helped our business tremendously. We do get a lot of people that come in and want to know who is talking on the radio, and I'm always here, so I'm always happy to say that it's me. We participate with Delmarva Dollars. A lot of customers bring them in. We have customers that ask when they're going to have them again if they don't hear it on the radio. We tried advertising in the newspaper and things like that, but we see more of a showing with the Delmarva Dollars. And the customers, they ask me, where else do we advertise? And I tell them, we only advertise with WGMD. We've been very successful with them. We get exactly what we ask for, and it's well worth the money that we invest in it.
Since 1980, WGMD Radio has been your local hometown station with everything from music to news to sports. We know a thing or two about community and longevity. The Talk of Delmarva is proud to be partnered with the White Marlin Open and congratulates them on 50 years.
Live in studio, I believe I have a caller. So caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Beverly, and I live in Dagsboro.
Hi, Beverly. How can I help you today?
Well, I have a question. I have a disability, and I have an absentee ballot all ready to complete.
Okay.
But what I'm wondering is, instead of mailing it, is it legal for my husband to take it in when he goes in person to vote?
Okay, so it is legal for your husband to take it to the Department of Elections and drop it off. But he can't take it to the polling place because ballots are not received at polling places. They have to be received at the Department of Elections.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. That's why I'm calling.
No, I'm glad.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to know that. I guess I'll have to mail it if he won't take it in.
Yeah, and I get it. And no, thank you for asking the question, and it's a really good question. Yep, he can deliver it, but can't take it to the polling place.
Okay, very good.
All right, thanks so much. I appreciate the call.
Much.
Thanks, Beverly.
Bye.
Okay, so on that topic, in terms of what dropping off a ballot or doing something like that, totally legal to do that here in Delaware, to collect a ballot and take it for somebody else. But as I said, and we have historically had a drop box at the Department of Elections. They're not all over the place. Constitutionally, that is an issue here in Delaware. But I personally, if I were going to be voting absentee, I would take it into the Department of Elections so that it's, you know that you've put it into somebody's hands. For people out there who are voting absentee, you can do that by going to ivote.de.gov. There's another site called swampthevoteusa.com that gets you there, but ivote.de.gov. You can request an absentee ballot. You have to state, there are choices there, a stated reason, but they give you what those choices are. These are not difficult reasons. One of them is literally vacation. Okay, so if you're not going to be in the state, you can do this. You request that absentee ballot. It is sent to you. You can fill it out, and then you can put it into the envelope that is provided, sign it, send it. You can track that. So on ivote.de.gov, there is a timeline that is there that will discuss when, or not discuss, it will disclose when you made the request, when the ballot was sent, when it came back. I mean, so there are some when it is actually scanned, not what is on it. So I know that after 2020, people were like, well, how do I know that my vote was counted with who I voted for? And the answer to that is you don't. We have secret ballots, but whether the vote was received by the Department of Elections, yes, that can be tracked. But if there is any chance that you can't vote in person between October 5th or October 25th and November 5th, request the absentee ballot. It's easy, and we need to get these things registered. As far as early voting goes, I know that I had a client earlier this week, and I was talking about early voting, and they said that they didn't want to do it, and basically what turned out was it was just a misunderstanding. They thought that early voting was absentee voting, where you're filling it out in advance and having to mail it in. And it is not. Early voting is just like election day voting. You are voting on a machine. You're presenting an ID. It's going into the poll book. You are going into a voting booth. It's, and Pat and I did that prior to the primary, the Sunday before the Tuesday of the primary. And I mean, it's easy. You just check in, you get it done. But I am pushing on early voting because things happen on election day. They just do. And I mean, whether it's something not even bad intent, but there's an outage. There was a polling place that opened late in Kent County because they didn't have power strips. I cannot make that up. I mean, all sorts of things. And so instead of waiting until that happens and potentially not being able to vote because there's a delay or something like that, if you go ahead, get that vote in early, secure that vote, it's a good thing. Okay, shifting from voting for a second, because I know that I had the call earlier from Kathy, who was talking about her mom's will, and I kind of pushed back and started talking about power of attorney. And I want to make sure that people understand why I'm talking about power of attorney, and that basically, in my mind, it is, I'm not going to say more important than a will, but certainly as important as a will. If you are married, just because you're married does not mean that you get to legally and financially speak for your spouse. A power of attorney has to be signed that says you have the right to do that. And a power of attorney gives authority to what's called an agent to make legal and financial decisions for you. In Delaware, when you do the power of attorney, when you complete the power of attorney, you can name more than one agent. And you can say the order that the agents act in, and you can say when the authority kicks in. It can be what is called durable, meaning as soon as you sign it, it is effective, or only when you're incapacitated, meaning that a doctor is going to fill out a certification that says you lack capacity. In parlance, I say you've lost your marbles before your agent can step in. In those powers, there's a couple pages of them that you have to initial. It used to be that you could just say, I could say, I, Julianne, name Patrick to be my agent to do what he needs to do. Now you have to actually initial a bunch of different powers. I go through those with you. You should know what they are before you initial them. And there are certain ones that I actually have you cross out because I don't want if you name your children, to be able to add their name to the deed or change your beneficiaries, because it can actually undermine some of your estate planning or where you want things to go. But there are a couple powers in that power of attorney that are so important in the event that you have to go on any kind of long-term care like Medicaid. I'm not talking Medicare, I'm talking Medicaid here, long-term care. Two different powers. One is, it says create, amend, revoke, or terminate an inter vivos trust. Inter vivos is Latin for while living. A revocable trust is an inter vivos trust. An irrevocable trust is inter vivos. The context for this is something that is called a Miller trust. And basically, if you are on long-term assistance, there is an income restriction. Not talking about a spend down, that's a second power. The first one is when you're qualifying for long-term assistance like that, right now the limit's a little over $2,100. If you make more or have more in income than $2,100, you can't qualify. Well, a lot of people have more than that. And so what happens is a Miller trust is created. that takes the overage and puts it over into basically what I'm going to call a restricted checking account that you can't be in charge of. That in that way, the government can check off the box that says you don't have more than $2,100. Any overage goes over into this other checking account, and your agent has access to that. If you do not initial this power and you lose your marbles, and your kids or your spouse is trying to, and what I mean by lose your marbles is you don't have the capacity to sign this Miller Trust, your family, your spouse, your children are going to have to go to Chancery Court and get a guardianship in order to execute this document. It's expensive, it's time consuming, it's a whole lot of things that could be very easily avoided if you initial this power on the power of attorney. Separate from that is, when we're talking about long-term care, is the spend down, where you have to be down to $2,500 of assets left. Lots of people have misconceptions about that in terms of what's included in that. Your house, if you are married, is absolutely not included in that. If you have joint bank accounts, half of what's in the account is included in that. The other half is not. But there's a power on that same power of attorney that allows your agent to gift or give things with Medicaid's blessing to get you through that spend down. That's very important. And then the third power is the one that I was actually talking to Kathy about, which is the right to reject or disclaim a beneficial interest. Beneficial interest is inheritance. So in the scenario that I was talking about there, if her mom died, her sister, her mom's sister, so her aunt, was going to inherit, and that screws up that Medicaid spend down or could disqualify her if she's going to inherit, the agent can then disclaim it, which means I don't want it, or modify it to make Medicaid happy. If these powers are not given or are not executed, then if you are the person who is receiving the aid, are jeopardizing the continuation of your benefits. So it is not a huge bank breaker to get a power of attorney. Do I advise you to go to an attorney to do it? I do, because I want you to understand what those powers are, and an attorney can explain them to you. But if not, and you just don't want to do that, you can find these from a legal service online. But it's very, very important to have this power of attorney in place, because if something happens to you quickly, you have a stroke and you lose capacity, you then don't have the ability to sign this document. So while things are good, while you know what's going on, get one of these powers of attorney taken care of so that it will help from an estate planning standpoint for your kids, for your spouse. You need to do this even if you're married.
With news, talk, and sports. Over 40 years strong. 92.7 WGMD. Rehoboth Beach, Ocean City.
Big crowds in Butler. I'm Pam Puso, Fox News. Former President Trump will rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, where he was nearly assassinated in July.
The former president, as he promised, is heading back to the Butler Farm Show Fairgrounds, north of Pittsburgh, where he was shot July 13th. Today, there will be a remembrance for Corey Compriator, the former fire chief who died in the shooting, and the other people injured will be honored. In addition to the former president's rally of support in the battleground state, Trump will be joined by running mate J.D. Vance, and for the first time ever, Elon Musk will also join the former president. Musk writing on X that he'll be there to support Donald Trump, who he fully endorsed following the assassination attempt. Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Many people who were there then have returned.
I witnessed a miracle that day. God kept him alive to save our country and to make the world a better place.
Lines started before dawn. To North Carolina, where recovery efforts have ramped up following Hurricane Helene.
You have propane cars or train cars that are tipped over on their sides and other propane tanks that
are in the area tossed around, and they're trying to empty them. So currently burning off the fuel that could take a couple of days, but surrounding this is just a lot of destruction from the water. So right now we're standing just above the Swannanoa River, one of the main reasons we are seeing such devastation here. This river rose to up to 26.1 feet last Friday. So now you can see debris in the trees. There are cars in the river. There could be hazards in terms of the water quality. That's something they're working with the EPA to test.
Fox Weather's Brandy Campbell, Vice President Kamala Harris will visit later. America's listening to Fox News.
Another update from your local news source, 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD, the talk of Delmarva.
Salisbury police are investigating the death of a man found in the north prong of the Wycomico River near Mill Street on Wednesday. I'm Mary Lou in the newsroom for the Talk of Delmarva. Salisbury and Maryland State Police were called around 3:30 to recover the body of a man identified as 42-year-old Joseph Alexis of Salisbury. He had been reported missing on September 30th. His body has been taken to the chief medical examiner in Baltimore for autopsy to determine the cause and manner of death. Police say foul play is not suspected at this time. Police are asking anyone with information on this incident to contact Salisbury Police or Crime Solvers. Dover police are investigating an early morning robbery in the area of South State Street Alley on Friday. Police were called just after 2 a.m. and found a 57-year-old Dover man who had been stabbed with a knife. Police learned the suspect approached the victim, stabbed him, and then took an undisclosed amount of money. The victim was treated at an area hospital, but police have no leads and are asking anyone with information to contact Dover police. Well, the first ever Country Calling Festival is taking place on the beach at the Inlet parking lot in Ocean City this weekend. The festival is sold out, and it's the second big music festival in 2 consecutive weekends after last week's Oceans Calling Festival. Like Oceans Calling, artist performances will take place on 3 stages throughout the venue at staggered times through today. The Delaware Electric Cooperative sent a team of trucks and gear to North Carolina on Tuesday to respond to the devastation caused by Hurricane Helene. The co-op has posted a short video of Team DEC working to help restore power to those who were impacted by the storm. That video is on their Facebook page. Line workers and first responders remain on the scene throughout western North Carolina and other areas affected by the storm. Several crews from Delmarva have responded, including Delmarva Power, DEC, and the Delaware Swiftwater Rescue Team.
WGMD AccuWeather.
We'll see a mix of sun and clouds through the day with clear skies into the overnight hours, but chilly with a low of 53 to 59. For Sunday, it'll be sunny, but watch for unusually rough surf and rip currents into Monday. The high on Sunday, 73 to 78. Monday will be a sunny day with a high of 75. I'm Mary Lou for 92.7 and 98.5, the Talk of Delmarva.
Explore the 5,000 square foot outdoor superstore right in Millsboro. Kelly's Outdoors is now selling new firearms. Kelly's is fully stocked for hunting season. Browse through a huge variety of new guns, massive amounts of ammo, durable hunting wear, and precision archery supplies. The team members at Kelly's are highly experienced hunters, ready to equip you with the right gear. Visit the locals' favorite outdoor superstore. Open every day at 8:30 a.m. east side of Millsboro on Route 24. Kelly's Outdoors, racks, fins, feathers.
This is Mark Schaefer, your Sussex County Councilman, appealing for your help. Our volunteer fire and EMS companies are under tremendous strain. We need your financial help, and we need volunteers. This is a great opportunity for young people to volunteer as firefighters and EMTs. The fire departments will provide all of your training and equipment. Please Google your local fire department and inquire about this wonderful opportunity. Please also send your financial support. Your help is greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Welcome back to Tipping the Scales of Justice. Julianne Murray live in studio. We are in our second hour. Phone numbers 302-945-9292 or 800-518-9292. You can go online to industrynewsonline.com and submit questions electronically there. My board is clear, so somebody call in, because otherwise I'm just going to continue to talk about whatever comes into my mind. So I do want to finish because I think we got cut off at the end of the last hour. Last thing on that, on the power of attorney and why it's so important, is if something happens to you, you don't know that when that could happen, that you lose capacity and you don't have this in place, you can't do it once you lose capacity. So the name of the game on this is get it done. Name somebody. There are ways to limit the power, so that I know that people have a lot of fear, not unjustifiably, around somebody taking over their lives and doing things that they're not supposed to. There's ways to kind of mitigate that. But not doing this actually is going to make things much harder on your family and potentially you, because a power of attorney is only effective while you're alive. It dies when you die. It is not the same as an executor. Now, the other thing that I mentioned sort of in passing, but I want to make sure that people understand related to wills, is that in Delaware, the real property transfers upon the death of the person, and it goes to whoever is named in the will. If there is no direction to sell there, it passes to them straight away. They become the owners. And what I tell my clients, if say you only have 2 kids, okay, and you pass it to your kids and you put no direction to sell, they are co-owners. They both have to sign the listing agreement. They both have to sign the deed, but they also have to agree on what's going to happen. So if they don't agree, then the house doesn't get sold, nobody gets their inheritance, or one of them moves in, okay, and says, hey, I'm taking my 50% by living here 100% of the time. There's a way to avoid that, and that's that direction to sell. Okay, it looks like I got a caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
I am Brian from Ocean View.
Hey, Brian, how can I help you today?
I just have a general question about government. It really involves the wind farms that are going to be put out in the ocean and bringing in transmission lines through 3 R's Beach to the old power plant.
Yep.
And everything is a lot of this is really being controlled outside of Sussex County. But does the Sussex County Council have permitting authority over whatever they're going to be doing at the power plant?
It's a great question that I do not know the answer to. I know that there has been a lot, and Dave Stevenson at Caesar Rodney has been just making sure everybody knows what's going on with this wind farm stuff. I know that there's been a push within the actual, I'm going to call it beach communities, the power plant. I would believe that Sussex County has jurisdiction over it, but you are correct that a lot of this, a lot of the decision making about this is more, is at a state level as opposed to the local level, which is part of the issue. Because the upstate may be tone deaf to what we're concerned about down here.
Well, I read something recently where an item came up about the permits at the county council, and they tabled it. I haven't seen anything else come up, but I'm thinking that, well, if they actually have to get permits through the council, there's our local
control
local group that we have to put pressure on.
Yep. And I have at least 3 county council people that listen to this, so I expect I'm going to get a text message here shortly, which is going to answer that. But I think that it is, if it is not, the power plant is not in a specific municipality. Yeah, because a particular beach community, then the council would, in theory, have the jurisdiction over it. So a municipality, so Fenwick, Bethany, Rehoboth, Dewey, they have their own permitting process that is separate from the county. But if it's not in, so at one point, for instance, I was a town solicitor for a small town over in western Sussex County, and the actual inside the town. Zoning and all of that was a town issue, not a Sussex County issue. So it depends on whether it's that the plant spills into, and I just don't know where the lines are to tell you that.
All righty. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, hang on for a second. So yeah, John Riley just wrote to me. Yes, pending. So John, tell me, does Sussex County have the? We'll get an answer here. Does Sussex County have the authority to do the permitting on for and it's specifically the offshore? It's the running of the cable that you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I better get an answer on that since it's great. I'm telling you, I love it when people are listening.
Well, thank you very much, Julianne.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Have a good day. Let's go back to those phone lines. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, Julianne. It's Leslie from Federalsburg.
Hey, Leslie. How can I help you today?
Okay, very different subject. I think I called before and I said I was looking into a no-fault divorce. But that cannot happen because we can't afford separate residences at this time. And my husband's moving out. He did find a house. But I agreed that we both agreed that I would stay in the house that we're living in now. Now, we're both retired, and our income comes from Social Security, and we're taking a distribution from our retirement fund.
Okay.
But the bulk of the money in the funds, see, we have separate and joint retirement funds.
Okay.
So the bulk of the money is in his name only, and that is the fund that we're drawing income from.
Okay.
So I was wondering, should I get some kind of a legal document drawn up between the two of us that he will continue, to fund our joint account so I can stay here for as long as I want to, being he's moving out?
Yes. All right. So, couple of things on this, because you call from Federalsburg. So, houses, we're talking Maryland versus Delaware.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not sure. I mean, that there's been a lot of changes to divorce law, and so Maryland used to have what they would call the limited divorce and then the absolute divorce. I think those are still in play, but they have changed the separation.
Yeah, we're not getting a divorce. So
okay.
We will stay married.
Okay. All right, because you said, but when you started this,
we've pretty much gone down the rabbit hole of, well, can we do this? Can we do that with the property and all the rest? And nothing seems to be working out.
I gotcha. Well, but what I wanted to make sure though was, I remember when you said you called at one point about a, no fault divorce. And what I want anybody who's listening is the basis of the divorce, meaning no fault versus a contested divorce, is different than we live together, than having to live in separate residences. Those are two totally different things. But
this was his choice, and
that's fine. Okay. But
he wants to go, and he's going, and that's it.
But if you are dependent on that money, then I mean, I think that either getting something in writing from him that I'm going to use the word guarantees that money is going to continue to come to you is important. And the thing you have to balance is you guys have done this so far, it sounds like, without attorneys. The minute that you involve an attorney, the posture may change. So,
I've already consulted an attorney.
Okay.
And I just want to know, is there what kind of a document? Can it just be handwritten and notarized, or?
All right. Two things. One is you said you've already consulted an attorney, so this is who you should be talking to about this. So I have to be super careful. If you have an attorney consulted with and hired are two different things. But this is super important from the standpoint. I mean, people do settlement agreements all the time, related or a separation agreement all the time. That you either don't get divorced or have the property settlement just kind of worked out without the attorneys. Basically, signature and notarized certainly solidifies that the person actually signed it. My concern is making sure that it is, I'm going to use the word bulletproof for lack of a better word, that income is going to continue to come in. So that making sure that wording is, locks it down is important. And, so just be careful on that if you're doing it yourself.
Well, then what kind of a document would it be to be legally binding?
It's a contract. So it's, so there is, like I just said, it's called a separation agreement is one that it can be called, but it's just, there doesn't have to be a special name for it. But it's, what you call it isn't important. What's in it is. Meaning that you got to make sure that
that's the next step for me, huh?
Yep, it is. But I would actually touch base back with the attorney that you consulted with to just say this is where we are, and see what the attorney says about it.
Yeah. Well, I did just consult with her, and I did not hire her. So
understood.
She's a nice gal. I think she'll probably help me out, but I thought I'd check with you first.
I know, but it's Maryland versus Delaware. And, and you are talking about doing this by yourself without an attorney. And, and so I have to be careful in terms of saying, oh, yeah, sure, go ahead and do it. Don't worry about it. I mean, there are things that can go wrong. And I just want to make sure that you're being careful about it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the information, Julianne.
Okay. I appreciate it.
Happy October 7th.
Thank you, Leslie. Have a great day. Real quick before I step away, John Riley wrote back and said there is a conditional use application for the substation in Dagsboro where the cables come to. We'll probably vote before the end of the year. Thank you, Councilman Riley, for that update. You are listening to 92.7 and 98.5, and that is the talk of Delmarva.
I'm Tom Holmes, 1776 Steakhouse in Rehoboth Beach. The restaurant's been here since 1987. I've had it since 2007. I get probably 2-3 customers a night that will come in and say, I heard you on the radio and it sounded great and we're so happy that you're advertising locally with local businesses. I used to do very limited advertising, just a little bit on newspapers and billboards and stuff like that, but now I'm pretty much exclusively just with the radio station. I advertise on Rehoboth Foodie Bob's show, and I also advertise different segments and different times during the course of the week. I've been pretty much with the same schedule for maybe about 10 years. I'm just happy I am advertising with them. They've been very loyal to us, and the feedback I get from my customers about the radio station is tremendous.
I'm Keith Pettit, an assistant manager here at Southern States Milford Cooperative in Milford, Delaware. My experience with WGMD radio station, Talk of Delmarva, has been outstanding. We do our once monthly radio show here in our showroom, and we instantly see results of people coming in that day and the following day and the weeks after saying, I heard about this on WGMD, the Talk of Delmarva. And not just at a close local level within a few miles, but it brings customers in from a fair distance to come and check out the products that we've talked about through the radio station advertising. But in my estimation, WGMD is the best talk radio station on Delmarva. People are in tune to hanging on every word that that station says, and that transfers to the advertisers. The people that listen to WGMD listen to our advertisements word for word, and they know what they're looking for when they come in here as a result. I just think they're phenomenal. They do a great job.
My name is Karen. My husband and I own Captain's Pizza. We have been here for over 6 years, going on 7. We only advertise with WGMD, and we love it. They really help us with anything that we need. They always have good suggestions. They help me with the commercials. Advertising has helped our business tremendously. We do get a lot of people that come in and want to know who is talking on the radio, and I'm always here, so I'm always happy to say that it's me. We participate with Delmarva Dollars. A lot of customers bring them in. We have customers that ask when they're going to have them again if they don't hear it on the radio. We tried advertising in the newspaper and things like that, but we see more of a showing with the Delmarva Dollars. And the customers, they ask me, where else do we advertise? And I tell them, we only advertise with WGMD. We've been very successful with them. We get exactly what we ask for, and it's well worth the money that we invest in it.
Since 1980, WGMD Radio has been your local hometown station with everything from music to news to sports. We know a thing or two about community and longevity. The Talk of Delmarva is proud to be partnered with the White Marlin Open and congratulates them on 50 years.
Welcome back to Tipping the Scales of Justice. Julianne Murray live in studio. Phone numbers 302-945-9292 or 800-518-9292. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Ted from Milford.
Hey, Ted, how can I help you?
I have a legal question, but another one about your app. I downloaded the app off the iPhone app store, whatever it's called.
Yep.
And it said that it's going to track me across other, when they give you the, all the legalese. Is that true? They're going to track where I go? And
if you can turn that off, but the app has what's called geolocating in it. Because in the app, there's a little, up at the top, there's a little 3 arrows that you can click on, and it gives you choices. And one of them is knocking doors, making phone calls, sending texts. And if you click on those, it gives you the name of 10 Republicans within, close to you. So it checks, it knows your location and then says, here, these are 10 people that you could reach out to if you wanted to. So there's the tracking across other apps. I think you could I need the location services to be turned on for this to work right. But it's been so long since I signed on to it, I don't remember what you're talking about from the standpoint of the across other apps.
Okay. Here's the question about the landlord-tenant code.
Go.
How often can you raise the rent on a tenant that has a month-to-month? And does it matter what the amount is?
Okay, good question. All right. So in terms of a month-to-month, is there an actual lease in place that is month-to-month, or is it a default month-to-month because there is no lease?
They had a lease, but that lease basically was a 1-year lease, and it's been out of effect for over a year. So, we're going month-to-month right now.
Okay. So I'm going to see if I can pull it up real quick. So in terms of how often can you do it and how much, were those the questions?
Yeah.
Okay. With a Delaware with a lease, with a month to month, I don't think you can change it monthly. I mean, I think that you have to give 60 days notice if you're making changes. And just like you would have to give 60 days notice if you were terminating it. So I think that,
right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I understood that part.
Okay. I'm looking to see if I can find I know that there is a limitation on the amount that late fees can be. I know that there's a limitation in the manufactured home part of the code about you can't go more than 5%, but I do not know that there is an actual limitation on the amount that you can do when you're in a month to month. I'm going to see if I can find something and I can just kind of update later on before the end of the show. But
right.
I
the most
don't
important
recall.
part is how many times can you do it in a year, let's say.
Okay.
The amount that I'm seeking is $25 a month, and I'm just to get through the winter, I kept it low, and I want to know if I can increase it, let's say next summer when, the heating bills are off.
Sure.
That's basically the dilemma.
Yeah, no, you can, but what I don't think you can do is, so I think you got to give notice when you're doing it, but on a month to month,
Right.
If you're talking $25, I think that's absolutely no issue. It's just, sometimes I got people who want to do hundreds of dollars, but you've got to give notice
Right.
that you're doing it, because if it's, if there's a party that wants to terminate as a result of the change in term, that they can do that. And that, and for either party, technically, there should be 60 days notice. And what I mean by either party is landlord or tenant. For you, that 60 days is absolutely critical. The tenant, could technically not give you 60 days. But as long as they're paying up, that's not necessarily an issue. But I think you can do the increase. It's just, you've got to give the notice that you're doing it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. Have a great day, Ted. Thanks. Okay. Going back to the phone lines. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Jim. I'm calling from Ocean View. I have a question, which I'm not sure that you can answer, but I'm going to fire it at you anyway.
Okay.
Given the situation in Tennessee and the areas that were hit by Carolina and Georgia and Florida, the areas that were hit by this hurricane, they're talking about these people possibly not being able to vote.
Yep.
That's a big chunk of the nation. Could the election be held up because of that?
It's a really good question, and the answer is I don't know. So it's something that right now, so for instance, South Carolina, they extended the deadline to register to vote. I think this is going to be handled on a state-by-state basis. I do not think that the federal election can't be postponed. That can't happen. It's happened on November 5th. What is going to be interesting is how we're going to deal with how the states that have been impacted by this are going to deal with their individual voters from the standpoint of voting by voting absentee, voting by mail. What happens if they don't have IDs? Whatever the state laws are. I do not think that the count would necessarily be delayed by this, meaning that because unless election headquarters is under mud somewhere. There's enough advance notice here, I guess is where I'm going, that to kind of work the problem, but we need to be working the problem. Like they need to be actively talking about it. I know in North Carolina, it's catching, because it's a battleground state, and it's catching attention about what are we going to do with these people? How are they going to be able to vote? But I don't think it actually holds up the federal election. At most, there could be something where they're going to say that they can't certify because they don't necessarily have all of the ballots in. But I don't think that's something that they can just say. I think that because there's a month to go still, they can be pushing out from an information standpoint, going into the communities and saying, even if they set up a temporary polling place or do something like that so people can vote. Where there's going to be an issue is if it's not addressed and people, can't, there's no mechanism for people to vote. But I know that there's a lot of different nonprofits and stuff that are trying to kind of work that problem.
Well, what was concerning me, and I look at it from the standpoint of the way the federal government is handling this. FEMA is not doing their job, and 100%. They're not getting in there, and they're not getting the roads open. There's areas that have not even been cleared, and people can't get out. Time is running out. The situation is totally out of control. And I look at it and I say to myself,
hey, listen, if you want to hang on, Jim, I have a hard break. So you're welcome to hang on. I know where you're going, but you're welcome to hang on. Okay, great. All right. You're listening to 92.7 and 98.5, and that is the talk of Delmarva.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Hutton from Rehoboth Beach Running Company. We've been in this location for about 8 years, and we've been in business for about 16 years. We're pretty much busy every day, all year round now. Since we've been advertising with the Talk of Delmarva, everywhere we go, people seem to know about us. I like working with other small businesses. We work with a lot of small businesses, and advertising is no different. And we like for people to come in and actually see our store. Yeah. So when people from the Talk of Delmarva have seen our store, they understand it better. Some of their other customers shop at our store, and it's really a small town kind of life. And people shop local, advertise local, listen to the local radio. It all kind of comes full circle. So how has the marketing department helped us? Well, I love that she's always looking ahead at the calendar, because as a small business person, I'm very busy and I'm kind of thinking of last minute things. And so Laura's always ready for the sidewalk sale. She knows it's a big deal for us. And so you want to get the word out a little bit early. And the sidewalk sale this year was better than ever. And I think it's in great part to Laura's planning and the commercials, so people know that the whole town is having a sidewalk sale and that we have big sales at that time of year. You know, I didn't really know what to expect in the beginning, because I didn't know whether she'd know our business. You know, I don't know if she would know runners and all about, but she listens very carefully and she researches and she really tries to gear our ads towards our business, and she does an excellent job. I think people really more now than ever want to shop local. I think people want to support local businesses and help the community. And so when people know that we are a small business that meets their needs, they'd rather shop here than go online or some other way. So I think people really want to help themselves and help the community. We have attracted our ideal customer at the Talk of Delmarva. We service people from, 12 years old or even younger to 95-year-olds. So yeah, I think our ads are doing a great job of bringing customers to us. The Talk of Delmarva advertising has helped with our marathon also. So I organized the Rehoboth Marathon and Half Marathon in December, and we sell out earlier and earlier every year. And I think that's due in part to advertising with the Talk of Delmarva. The people know that we have a running store and that we also have this big race at a great time of year, and people sign up earlier and earlier every year. I really do believe that the return on investment is huge. I think we definitely got return on our investment quickly. Every dollar spent was well worth it. I would highly recommend for other businesses to advertise on the Talk of Delmarva. It's been a great experience for us. It's been very worthwhile, and I would highly recommend it to other businesses.
I'm Tom Holmes, 1776 Steakhouse in Rehoboth Beach. The restaurant's been here since 1987. I've had it since 2007. I get probably 2-3 customers a night that will come in and say, I heard you on the radio and it sounded great, and we're so happy that you're advertising locally with local businesses. I used to do very limited advertising, just a little bit on newspapers and billboards and stuff like that, but now I'm pretty much exclusively just with the radio station. I advertise on Rehoboth Foodie Bob's show, and I also advertise different segments and different times during the course of the week. I've been pretty much with the same schedule for maybe about 10 years. I'm just happy I am advertising with them. They've been very loyal to us, and the feedback I get from my customers about the radio station is tremendous.
The Hall of Famer Rod Woodson are on the call. Baltimore Ravens football, presented by the original Green Turtle in North Ocean City on WGMD's 92.7.
Welcome back to Tipping the Scales of Justice. Julianne Murray. We're in our last half hour. Phone number is 302-945-9292 or 800-518-9292. You can also go online to industrynewsonline.com and submit questions electronically. We're going to go back to the phone lines. Jim, are you still there?
Still here.
Okay.
I'm not going to really keep you too much because I'm not sure just how much this pertains to legalese.
I get it.
I just go back to the statement that, in my opinion, there is a legal issue here with the ability of the voters in those areas not being able to exercise their right to vote. And that's the bottom line that I'm using.
And I think you're correct about that. And I think that, what I don't know, because I've not had, right now in terms of, we're dealing from a disaster standpoint with, water and, food and things like that. It's not that the voting is not important at all. But I think that what is going to happen is there's a month to go. I think that there are people that can see. I mean, we can see what's happening here. You're right. These people can't even get out of the neighborhood because they've lost everything. That there's gonna have to be some mobilization to these communities, and it shouldn't take a lawsuit to make that happen. But there is absolutely a disenfranchisement issue if there's not some sort of, I'm going to use the word extraordinary effort to make sure that these people can vote.
Thank you for talking to me.
Not a problem at all. I appreciate the call very much. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
All right, thanks. Take care. Okay, and then so in terms of, again, back to kind of, voting, every state has different laws in terms of whether they have vote by mail, whether there's an ID requirement. All of that is going to have to kind of be addressed in these, I'm going to use the word disaster areas of North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, just kind of figuring this out. Let's go back to the phone lines. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
My name's Butch Elzey from Milford. Hey. How are you?
Hey, Butch. How are you?
I'll tell you what getting old ain't for sissies.
That is a true statement right there, my man. What are you calling about? What's going on?
I've had a problem. I was in the hospital. I've had several issues. And so anyway, I don't want to go into my dirty laundry on the air, but I'm asking your advice. You know how much I love you, and I still consider you our governor. But anyway, I had an issue at the hospital, and it turned out to be the most humiliating thing I've ever been involved in. I was lied to, a whole lot of things. Linda has got all the transcripts of everything, and what they did to me is inexcusable. They don't even do stuff they did to me to criminals. And I talked to Mike, and I said, I need to call Julianne just for advice.
Okay.
I'm not, I don't want to go into detail on the air, but
gotcha.
I mean, it was crazy. I've done a lot of things. I sat down and counseled wounded soldiers. I've done, you know what I've done.
Right.
And I have never been put in a position like this in my life. Like I said, it was humiliating, and they lied a lot. So, should I contact you off the air? Or?
Well, it's not my area of the law. So let's talk through a little bit.
I understand.
I know.
I understand.
So you can.
Just want advice.
Yeah. And so without going into the details, let me just talk a little bit about kind of what something would look like from I'm going to use the word lawsuit standpoint. Because with medical stuff, there's two different things that can happen. There can be
it's not exactly medical services.
I understand, and that's where I was going. Is there's malpractice, which is bad medical service, and then there is torts. And I know I'm not talking ice cream cakes here. Torts that and there's one that's called intentional infliction of emotional distress. IIED is are the initials for it. That sometimes these kinds of things can fall under. And the standard on is it's called a reasonable, prudent person standard, which take that for what it's worth. But that what happened is shocking, appalling. There are things like shocks the conscience. Those are the adjectives that are used to describe it. That kind of tort, it's a civil action, so it's a civil litigation issue, does exist. But, it from the standpoint of going into the detail on it as part of a legal complaint, you would have to go into and I understand we're on the air, and I understand why we're not airing dirty laundry. Yeah, but from a complaint standpoint, you would have to have an attorney that would spell out what happened, but also how you suffered as a result of it. My problem with IIED or any of these kinds of torts is how the heck do you quantify what those damages are? You don't necessarily have to give it a number, but you have to be able to detail that you actually suffered harm as a result of it. Not necessarily physical harm. There can be emotional harm. But it's a very tough standard to spell out. And so,
well,
go ahead.
For my wife to get mad and want to go through this, that in itself is amazing. But I called you for your advice, and I love you.
I do,
and
likewise.
I appreciate what you're doing for our Republican Party.
Man, I'm trying. you know it's a handful.
You're honey, you got more people backing you than you even realize.
Well, I appreciate that. It's it's nice to get these phone calls every now and then because there's a whole lot of alligators out there. So to know that there are also people that are that are on board and supporting us is nice. So I appreciate that.
Well, I wish you the best, dear.
All right, thanks. You take care, Butch. And if you want to call, I can try and get you to a civil litigator. Okay. If you want to call the office, my assistant's Pam. And just be patient, leave the message because it's going to take us a couple of days. Okay.
I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you so much.
You take care. Have a good day. And I wish you the best.
Thank you so much. You take care. All right. Let's go back to those phone lines. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, Julianne. Stephen from Milton. How are you today?
I'm well. What can I do for you, Stephen?
So here's a little scenario. I want your thoughts. About 2 months ago, my neighbor got into a very bad accident at the intersection of College Road and 113. They were coming out of Walmart. They were on the left lane, had the green light. A woman just ran the red light, smashed into the car on the left, to the left of him. Mm-hmm. It spun that around so hard, it smashed in the side of a 98 Crown Victoria. He had broken thigh bone. He's broken ribs. The woman that got hit by the woman coming south on 113, broken back, all sorts of stuff. Now, she ends up, they arrest her because she had or something because she did not have a valid license. She was suspended but had insurance. He's been in the hospital for over a month with rehab. We don't even know what the other woman, what's going on with her. She pleads guilty. They give her a fine of $25 and said, "Hey, go ahead." And it came, and the judge said they had no say in it. It came from somewhere else. What is that about? Do you know? Would you have any idea?
Okay, so trying to unpack it a little bit. So that there was a citation for driving while suspended or driving without a license. Okay, so the suspended license. Okay, so there are penalties that are that go with that. On the second occurrence of it, there is actually jail time. But if it was a first occurrence of it, somewhere in there, someone in the Attorney General's office was involved in that, unless it was in JP court. I doubt it, since there was an accident and there's, if she didn't have insurance, or she did have insurance, but she just didn't have the license.
Yeah.
Okay, so my guess is in court it went to the Court of Common Pleas. I don't know that for sure, but I'm thinking it probably did, because JP Court would have had, would have been a police agency, and that's not how you're describing it. So, what happens with that is there is an opportunity at the Court of Common Pleas. There are plea bargains that are offered, and so somewhere in here. There was a plea that may have been offered by the office of from the AG's office. What I'm surprised about is that there is what's called a victim's bill of rights. That typically the AG's office is required to get in touch with the victims, and the victims don't have to agree. They don't have to agree, but they have to be informed of what's going on and told. So there should have been some sort of conversation about this. Did that happen?
No, not that I'm aware of. All of a sudden, my neighbor had a lawyer, and all of a sudden he says, "Oh, she pleaded guilty, and they gave her a little fine of $25, and there you go." Nothing.
That's surprising to me, because these are serious injuries. And
oh my God, yeah, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth, and that's just my neighbor. I don't know about the other woman.
Yeah, I'm something seems rotten in Denmark on this. Just FYI. I mean, it doesn't. There's more to this story somewhere because And the other thing is, you said this just happened a month ago, right?
About now, it's about 2 months now.
Okay, so we're right. I mean, because the timing of that's also incredibly quick. I mean, these dockets are full. So, to have a court date that quickly is, but 2 months is possible. But yeah, I'm surprised. I think what I would do, so was your neighbor listed in the police paperwork? Do you know?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I believe, no doubt. His daughter got the paperwork, and yes, I'm pretty sure he was.
I would reach out to the misdemeanor unit of the AG's office, and they have and they have victim services, and I mean he would have to do this as the victim, and ask for find out what happened. But the victim doesn't get to it's not required that the victim agree, but victim is supposed to be it's required that they're contacted. So the fact that
they weren't even notified. As far as I know, they weren't even notified.
That is unusual. So I'm not quite sure what happened there, but that's where I would start, is the AG's office.
Yeah, I just text came in. He was still in the hospital when that all happened.
Wow. Yeah, I don't understand that. To me, they're just with this kinds of serious accidents. Just is not, or injuries. I mean, this serious injuries. That just doesn't sit right.
That's what I said. And I know at least someone can shed some light and give me some direction, or give that I can give to them.
Yeah.
So say that again. It's the what?
It's the Office of the Attorney General. So you're going to call the Sussex office of it, and you're looking for. They have victim advocates. Just tell them, victim of an accident where there was a ticket, and they'll get you to who you need to talk to. That's the criminal side of it. There's still going to be a civil side. I mean, the insurance companies are going to hash all of this out. But I mean, there should have been restitution. I mean, there's all sorts of things that seem odd to me about this for this to be handled that quickly. Well, but that's where I would push.
When you say restitution, isn't that in the civil side, or is it also in the criminal side?
It's also in the criminal side.
Okay. All
right. And in fact, what can happen is, from the standpoint of restitution, they can, when there's insurance involved, there can be restitution for basically kind of if there's any gap in coverage or something like that. So it could hit in more than one place.
Got it. Okay. That's awesome. That's why we come to the source. Thank you.
I appreciate
so much.
that. All right.
Again,
thanks. Have a good day.
Like the last one said, we appreciate you very much.
Thank you so much. I know I've got another caller. Hang on for me because I got to step away for a minute. You are listening to 92.7 and 98.5, and that is the Talk of Delmarva.
I'm Tom Holmes, 1776 Steakhouse in Rehoboth Beach. The restaurant's been here since 1987. I've had it since 2007. I get probably 2-3 customers a night that will come in and say, I heard you on the radio and it sounded great, and we're so happy that you're advertising locally with local businesses. I used to do very limited advertising, just a little bit on newspapers and billboards and stuff like that, but now I'm pretty much exclusively just with the radio station. I advertise on Rehoboth Foodie Bob's show, and I also advertise different segments and different times during the course of the week. I've been pretty much with the same schedule for maybe about 10 years. I'm just happy I am advertising with them. They've been very loyal to us, and the feedback I get from my customers about the radio station is tremendous.
I'm Keith Pettit, an assistant manager here at Southern States Milford Cooperative in Milford, Delaware. My experience with WGMD radio station, Talk of Delmarva, has been outstanding. We do our once monthly radio show here in our showroom, and we instantly see results of people coming in that day and the following day and the weeks after saying, I heard about this on WGMD, the Talk of Delmarva. And not just at a close local level within a few miles, but it brings customers in from a fair distance to come and check out the products that we've talked about through the radio station advertising. But In my estimation, WGMD is the best talk radio station on Delmarva. People are in tune to hanging on every word that that station says, and that transfers to the advertisers. The people that listen to WGMD listen to our advertisements word for word, and they know what they're looking for when they come in here as a result. I just think they're phenomenal. They do a great job.
My name is Karen. My husband and I own Captain's Pizza. We have been here for over 6 years, going on 7. We only advertise with WGMD, and we love it. They really help us with anything that we need. They always have good suggestions. They help me with the commercials. Advertising has helped our business tremendously. We do get a lot of people that come in and want to know who is talking on the radio, and I'm always here, so I'm always happy to say that it's me. We participate with Delmarva Dollars. A lot of customers bring them in. We have customers that ask when they're going to have them again if they don't hear it on the radio. We tried advertising in the newspaper and things like that, but we see more of a showing with the Delmarva Dollars. And the customers, they ask me, where else do we advertise? And I tell them, we only advertise with WGMD. We've been very successful with them. We get exactly what we ask for, and it's well worth the money that we invest in it.
Since 1980, WGMD Radio has been your local hometown station with everything from music to news to sports. We know a thing or two about community and longevity. The Talk of Delmarva is proud to be partnered with the White Marlin Open and congratulates them on 50 years.
Welcome back to Tipping the Scales of Justice. Julianne Murray, live in studio. I got about 7 minutes to go, and I've got a caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Father John, Julie, from Georgetown.
Hello, Father John. How are you today?
I'm in one piece for the piece I'd be in.
Love it. What are we talking about?
Well, I'll tell you what concerns me. There's so many people when it comes to voting right now have me upset because they don't understand it's a responsibility that they have to use their right to vote. They think, well, I vote or I don't, you know. It's something that, well, if I don't feel right about it, I won't. I think they got to realize that how can you complain about the government if you don't vote?
I'm with you on that, and I now I'm curious. Do you notice it in a particular age group more than or more across?
Mostly the younger people than me. But when I say me, you know how old I am. So there you go.
You've got a couple of years on you. Yeah.
But the whole thing, when I went to school up in Pennsylvania, in senior year in high school, we had a course that was called POD, Problems of Democracy. And we were taught about the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, even got talking a little bit about the, in between the Declaration and the,
the Articles of Confederation, the Declaration, and the Constitution, all of them.
That.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is, you understand how the government works. We're the government.
Yep.
Except we elect people to go represent us that sometimes they do a good job and sometimes they don't. The whole thing is we have to make sure it is in our way to react to what happens wrong is to vote ourselves.
Agreed. Well, and I think that, so the reason I asked about the age thing is I know that what we are doing is we're targeting 18 to 29-year-olds, and basically, trying to get them engaged, and because the liberal side of the equation has done a good job of doing that, so we need to be doing it on the conservative side. And I think that we're making inroads on that. By the way, there's a good groundswell here. Our young Republicans in Delaware we've got county chairs, we've got a statewide chair. It's starting to grow, and so there's hope there. that group is a problem, and then the other group that I see as a problem, and it's not necessarily age specific, is the kind of what I'm going to call the disengaged person who just says either my vote doesn't count or my vote doesn't make a difference, in which case, those are the ones that I'm trying from a messaging standpoint to get them to realize that, yeah, it does matter. And, every single one of them needs to be voting. And, I hear you and agree with you. If you can't complain if you don't engage. I mean, that's the way it should be, but people do it all the time. But trying to get people to understand, I mean, we took civics. So you had, problems of democracy. I took civics, same kind of concept. That just doesn't happen the same way now. It's, the whole responsibility thing is just, not hitting, and that's a problem.
Well, we got to make sure that people know, and we got to start with the children, and some of that's family responsibility, but also in the schools is the teachers should be neutral to the extent is here you have this beautiful right that you have something to say about the government. Use it and use it well.
Yep, well said. All right, I got to do one more phone call before I got about 3 minutes to go. So I very much appreciate.
God bless America. God bless you too, dear.
Thank you so much. You have a beautiful day. Thank you. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Last caller. Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from? You're on the air. What's your name? I can't hear. Let's see. Do we have a caller? Okay. All right, I thought I had one there, so I rushed Father John off, and we could have talked for 2 more minutes, and now you guys just get to listen to me. Woohoo! All right, so lots of different things here. One last thing I want to say on the phone call I had with Stephen about the neighbor who had the bad accident. When there is a car accident where a ticket is issued, the ticket part of it can be a criminal proceeding that's either going to be in the Justice of the Peace Court or the Court of Common Pleas, depending on what the infraction is. And then there is the civil component would be like a personal injury suit. Super unusual to me and a problem as far as I'm concerned, that a case of that magnitude where there's that many injuries was handled, the criminal aspect of it, the ticket aspect of it was handled so quickly without consideration of the victims. So, my advice was reach out to the AG's office and find out what happened with that, because as a victim, you should be able to have a say in that. The other thing is that in terms of landlord-tenant code that just kind of I wrote down just to kind of clean up some things here. When you are a landlord, and this is not what the phone call was about, but it was, when you are a landlord, you have to make sure that you give the landlord-tenant code, a summary of it, to your tenants, believe it or not. If you get a deposit from them, you're supposed to keep it in a separate account. If they pay a security deposit, you have to give it back. If you don't give it back, you have to give details of why you're not. Why I'm bringing this up is landlords do not, ignorance is not an excuse, and there's a lot of responsibilities if you are a landlord. Things where you can get what are called treble damages against you, should be enough to kind of make you realize if you're going to rent your property out to somebody that you need to make sure that you understand what you're doing and make sure that your tenants are complying, but that you're complying with what your responsibilities are as a landlord. That includes things about rent increases and things like that. So thanks for tuning in this week. This is Julianne Murray, tipping the scales of justice. This is 92.7 and 98.5, and that is the Talk of Delmarva.
Peninsula's heritage hometown station for over 40 years.